My daughter's scream wasn't loud, just sharp enough to slice through the music and laughter of my sister's backyard party. Moments earlier, she'd skipped inside carrying the gift she'd saved weeks to buy. Now she ran back toward me, cheeks blotchy, eyes shaking. Behind her, my sister stood with a drink in hand, smirking as if she'd simply commented on the weather. "Next time, don't bring your discount store kids," she'd said loudly for everyone to hear. Guests froze. My husband looked at her once, jaw tight. Then he said six words that turned the entire party silent. "Stay with us, this amazing story will leave you speechless. Before we start, hit like, share, and subscribe, and drop in the comments where you're watching from right now." The invitation arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, tucked into a glossy pink envelope that looked more like a wedding announcement than a child's birthday party. My sister, Melanie, had slipped it into our mailbox herself, probably so she could avoid seeing my reaction when I opened it. The front was embossed with gold lettering, the kind you see on luxury stationery. Savannah's 10th birthday, an elegant garden experience. Elegant. That one word alone told me we might not belong there. My daughter, Lily, spotted the envelope before I did. She gasped as if it were a treasure map. "Mom, look, it's from Aunt Melanie." Her excitement was genuine, bright, untainted. She didn't hear the echoing warnings behind those gold letters the way I did. I forced a smile. "Let's open it together." Inside lay the kind of invitation that tries too hard. Curated fonts, detailed event schedules, a dress code, and a list of polite reminders, including one about bringing appropriate gifts for a high-end celebration. Only my sister could turn a 10-year-old's birthday into a red carpet event. My husband read it over my shoulder and exhaled slowly. "She really leaned into the whole exclusivity thing, huh?" "Looks that way," I said, pretending not to feel the familiar knot tightening in my stomach. The truth was, Melanie and I hadn't lived in the same world for years. She'd built her life around appearances, designer everything, curated photo shoots, friends who cared more about handbag labels than humanity. I'd built mine around Lily, thrift stores, weekend crafts, and a home that wasn't perfect but was ours. Still, Lily's eyes sparkled. "Can we go, Mom? Please?" And just like that, the decision made itself. Because even if my sister had forgotten what family meant, I refused to let Lily feel excluded before we even arrived. "Of course we're going," I said softly. "It's a party. We'll make it fun." Even if something about that invitation whispered otherwise. Lily spent the entire week talking about the party, what she would wear, what the garden might look like, whether Savannah would remember the bracelet she made her last summer. Her excitement was a steady hum that filled our small house, drifting from room to room like sunlight. I wanted so badly to feel it with her, but something in my chest kept tightening, a quiet whisper reminding me that Melanie's world had sharp edges, the kind that cut children who didn't shine the way she expected. On Saturday morning, Lily pulled out her mason jar of savings, crumpled bills, loose change, and a single folded $5 note she'd received from the Tooth Fairy months ago. She poured everything onto the table, coins rolling in different directions as she counted. "I have $14.83, she announced proudly. "Do you think that's enough for Savannah's present?" My throat tightened. "It's more than enough, sweetheart. And it's perfect because you earned it." We went to the local discount store, the one with flickering lights and aisles arranged in ways that never made sense. Lily walked through every row slowly, running her fingers across colorful notebooks, glitter pens, friendship bracelet kits. She picked things up, put them down, then circled back as if the right gift was calling her name but whispering too softly. Finally, she stopped in front of a small jewelry-making set. Sparkly beads, pastel strings, little charms shaped like hearts and stars. "This one," she said, hugging the box to her chest. "Savannah loves making things. Remember? She told me she wanted to start a bracelet business someday. I remembered. I also remembered the way Savannah had bragged about her real silver charm bracelet at Christmas, waving it in Lily's face like a trophy she didn't earn. But my daughter only saw the good in people, light where others showed shadows. At home, Lily wrapped the gift herself. She used newspaper because we ran out of wrapping paper, but she tied it with a bright yellow ribbon that made the whole package shine. When she finished, she placed it gently on her lap and smiled with a pride so pure it made my heart ache. "She's going to love it, Mom," she said. And for her sake, I wished with everything in me that it would be true. The moment we turned onto Melanie Street, Lily pressed her face to the window, breath fogging the glass. "Whoa! Mom, look!" And how could I not? The entire block looked as if it had been rented for a celebrity event. Cars lined both sides of the road, sleek black SUVs, polished sedans, not a single vehicle older than 5 years. Giant pastel balloons arched over Melanie's driveway, framing a sign that read, "Savannah's Enchanted Garden Experience." Experience, not party. Experience. I felt my stomach drop. Lily, however, was dazzled. "It looks like a fairy tale." I forced a smile. "It does, sweetheart." Before we had even unbuckled our seatbelts, 2 event staff members in matching floral shirts approached, guiding us toward a designated parking area because of course Melanie had hired parking attendants for a 10-year-old's birthday. One of them glanced at our aging sedan, his polite smile slipping for a fraction of a second before he recovered it. I noticed. My husband noticed. Lily didn't. We walked up the driveway, stepping through clouds of pastel confetti that fluttered along the pavement like butterflies. Music floated from the backyard, soft classical tunes mixed with upbeat garden-themed melodies. Melanie never did anything halfway. That included making people feel unwelcome. At the entrance, a woman with a clipboard stood checking off names. She offered us a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "And you are—" "Camilla," I said. "Melanie's sister." Her eyebrows lifted, just slightly, as if that detail didn't quite align with whatever image she had built of Melanie's social circle. She checked the list, found our names, and stepped aside. Inside, the backyard had been transformed into something out of a magazine spread. Tall floral centerpieces towered over white tablecloths, crystal pitchers glimmered in the sunlight, and children in designer outfits ran across manicured grass, laughing like they belonged to a different reality. Lily held her gift carefully, the yellow ribbon brushing her wrist. I scanned the crowd, searching for Melanie. When I finally spotted her near a table surrounded by perfectly dressed mothers, she looked radiant and completely unaware that my daughter and I felt like mismatched puzzle pieces forced into the wrong picture. Still, Lily squeezed my hand. "Let's go find Savannah." And so we stepped deeper into a party that already felt like it had no room for us. Lily walked ahead of us, clutching the gift with both hands, completely unaware of the eyes that followed her. Children dressed in sparkling tulle and miniature suits paused mid-giggle to stare at her simple cotton dress and hand-me-down shoes. It wasn't hostile at first, just curiosity mixed with something colder. Something learned, not natural. I felt each glance like a pinprick. Near the refreshment table, a pair of mothers sipped champagne in tall flutes, their laughter tinkling like glass. One leaned toward the other, whispering behind a manicured hand. They weren't subtle. Their eyes flicked toward Lily, then toward me, then back to each other with a smirk that needed no translation. My husband's jaw tightened, but he kept quiet. Melanie spotted us then, offering a wide smile that was all teeth and no warmth. "Camilla, you made it." Her gaze swept over Lily's dress, pausing for a moment too long. She recovered with a chirpy, "Lovely to see you," but the strain in her voice betrayed her. Before I could respond, another mother walked up, wearing a designer sundress that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. "Melanie," she said, tapping her cheek for a kiss, "the setup is absolutely divine. You outdid yourself." Then, noticing us, she added, "Oh, and this is my sister," Melanie said quickly, "and her family." The woman's smile was polite, stiff. "How sweet," she said, though her tone suggested she found it anything but. Lily, still glowing with excitement, didn't catch the shift in atmosphere. "Aunt Melanie, where's Savannah? I brought her something special." Melanie nodded distractedly. "She's inside the gift room, sweetheart. Go ahead." As Lily skipped away, another pair of mothers murmured behind us, "I didn't know Melanie had a sister. She doesn't mention her much." I swallowed the familiar sting. My husband reached for my hand. "Red flag number 1, he whispered softly. I nodded, feeling a storm building somewhere beneath the music and laughter. Quiet, gathering, inevitable. The gift room wasn't really a room at all. It was Melanie's sunroom, transformed into a display gallery for presents. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with light, illuminating piles of glossy bags and shimmering wrapping paper. It looked less like a child's birthday and more like a boutique showroom curated for a magazine cover. Lily paused at the doorway, her eyes widening. "Wow," she whispered. "Savannah's so lucky." My heart twisted, not because of the room, but because she meant it sincerely. She took a tiny breath, squared her shoulders, and stepped inside, holding her carefully wrapped gift as if it might shatter. My husband and I stayed back, letting her have her moment. I watched her walk toward the display table, feet light, movements gentle as she found a small space to place her modest package among boxes wrapped in gold foil and thick satin ribbons. For a moment, everything seemed fine. Then I heard it, voices drifting from behind the decorative partition near the back of the sunroom. Savannah's voice, unmistakable, high-pitched and dripping with bratty delight. "Mom said everyone had to bring a nice gift this year. Nothing cheap. It's my double-digit birthday." A few other kids giggled. Another voice chimed in, one of Savannah's friends. "My mom said she spent $200 on your bracelet. How much do you think that one cost?" She pointed, and though I couldn't see which gift she meant, a sinking feeling hit my stomach like a stone. Savannah snorted. "If it's wrapped in newspaper, I don't even want to open it." Laughter exploded, light, cruel, unfiltered. And then Lily stepped into view, just as Savannah rounded the corner and spotted her. My daughter froze mid-step, the yellow ribbon on her gift fluttering slightly as if trying to shield her. Savannah's smirk deepened. "Oh, it's yours." The silence that followed was the kind that crushes. Lily looked confused for a heartbeat, then hurt, deep, bone-level hurt that wiped the sparkle from her eyes. She clutched her hands together, trying to steady herself. I thought you'd like it," she whispered. Savannah shrugged with exaggerated boredom. "It's fine. Whatever. Just put it in the back so it doesn't ruin the pictures." The giggles resumed, and in that moment, I watched something precious inside my daughter dim, not break, not shatter, just dim, like a candle fighting a sudden gust of wind. I stepped forward, ready to intervene. But what happened next would make this moment feel small in comparison. I reached the doorway just as Lily stepped away from the table, her shoulders drawn inward, hands fidgeting with the frayed edge of her dress. The laughter behind her still echoed in the sunroom, bouncing off the glass like tiny shards of cruelty. My husband moved toward her, but before either of us could say a word, Melanie swept into the room, wine glass in hand, smile fixed and polished. "There you are," she exclaimed, spotting Lily near me. Savannah was wondering why the smaller gifts weren't arranged in the back like I asked. Smaller, not handmade, not special, just smaller. I felt my jaw tighten. She placed her gift where she could. It's fine. But Melanie wasn't looking at me. Her eyes were on the crowd of mothers behind us, an audience she curated more carefully than the floral centerpieces outside. She tilted her head, her voice lifting in that performative, airy tone she used when she wanted to sound innocent while sharpening a blade. "Well," she said loudly, "we just have to keep the nicer gifts visible. You know how pictures are. The aesthetics matter so much." A wave of murmurs spread across the room like a ripple. My daughter's face fell. She didn't understand the coded language, but she understood tone. She understood rejection. Melanie took a slow sip of her drink, then added, still loud enough for every parent, every child, every whispering spectator to hear, "There's just no room for your discount store kids at a party like this." The words hit the air like a slap. Lily froze. My husband's hand curled into a fist at his side. A few mothers sucked in quiet breaths. Even Savannah's friends went still. For a second, no one moved. The world narrowed to my daughter's trembling chin, the way she blinked rapidly as if trying to erase what she'd heard. "Mom," she whispered, voice cracking. "Did I do something wrong?" My heart shattered. Before I could reach her, Lily turned and ran, past the gifts, past the stunned adults, past the sun-drenched doorway, out into the yard where balloons bobbed obliviously in the wind. Tears streaked down her cheeks as she fled to the only person she knew would hold her without judgment. She ran to me. Melanie smirked behind us, lifting her wine glass like she'd merely made a clever joke. But this time, she had gone too far. And before the next minute passed, she would learn exactly how far. Lily collided with my waist so hard it nearly knocked the wind out of me. Her small fingers clawed at my dress as she buried her face against me, sobbing in short, shaky breaths. I wrapped my arms around her, shielding her from the 100 staring eyes scattered across the backyard. The music faltered, the laughter thinned, and the entire party seemed to hold itself still, waiting to see what we would do. My husband approached, his expression carved from stone. He brushed a hand over Lily's hair before turning his, gazed toward the sunroom, where Melanie still stood, chin lifted, shoulders back, smirk carved into place as if cruelty were a casual hobby. A few mothers drifted closer, pretending to check their phones, but their ears were tilted toward us. Others simply stared openly. The air felt thick enough to cut. Melanie stepped out onto the patio, arms crossed. "Oh, come on, Camilla," she said, voice dripping with derision. "Don't be dramatic. It was a joke. Kids need to toughen up." My husband stopped walking. Slowly, deliberately, he turned to face her. His voice wasn't loud, but the controlled calmness in it made every conversation around us dissolve into silence. He said 6 words. 6 words that sliced through the party like lightning. "You humiliated her, in front of everyone." The effect was instant. Guests froze, drinks halfway to their lips. Savannah stopped bouncing beside her friends. Even the hired photographer lowered her camera. Melanie blinked, her smirk faltering for the first time. "Excuse me?" My husband stepped closer, not menacing, just unshakable. "You heard me," he said, voice steady as bedrock. "You humiliated a child because her gift didn't look expensive enough for your curated little world." Gasps fluttered across the patio like startled birds. Melanie's cheeks reddened, but she lifted her chin. "You're overreacting. This is my home, my party, and you used both," he interrupted, "to tear down a 10-year-old, your niece." That time, the silence wasn't shock. It was judgment. It rolled across the backyard in a slow, unforgiving wave, shifting the atmosphere entirely. Melanie looked around and saw what we already had. People weren't laughing with her anymore. They were staring at her with tight lips and narrowed eyes, the kind people reserve for villains in stories they've suddenly realized they're living through. Her voice cracked. This is ridiculous. No, my husband said quietly. What you did was. In all the years I'd known him, I'd never seen him so calm, so precise, so protective. And in that moment, the entire party shifted, because those 6 words didn't just call out the cruelty, they exposed it. Melanie's expression flickered, smirk melting into something tighter, more brittle. She glanced around, scanning the faces of the parents who'd spent the afternoon praising her decorations, her catering, her perfectly staged garden experience. She was used to admiration, not scrutiny. The shift unsettled her. She pasted on a sugary smile. Everyone, please, she said, voice bright and trembling at the edges. This is just a misunderstanding. Camilla's family takes things personally. Always have. Her eyes darted toward me with a pointed sting. Lily is sensitive. I didn't mean anything by it. The mothers nearby exchanged quiet looks. Not supportive ones. Not anymore. My husband stepped closer, but I touched his arm, letting him know I had this. My voice came out calm, steady, the kind that vibrates with controlled fury. You called my daughter a discount store kid. Loud enough for everyone to hear. That's not a misunderstanding, Melanie. Her jaw twitched. I was joking, she snapped, the sweetness peeling away to reveal something sharper. Some people know how to take a joke. A 10-year-old shouldn't be the punchline, I replied. For a moment, the only sound was the faint clinking of ice in abandoned glasses. Even Savannah looked unsure, tugging at the sequined skirt of her expensive dress, as if suddenly aware of how heavy it felt. Melanie's eyes hardened. You're blowing this out of proportion. I work hard to host beautiful events, and I can't have mismatched gifts ruining the aesthetic. She said the last word slowly, as though it were a foreign concept we weren't educated enough to understand. A few parents sucked in nervous breaths. One father shook his head, muttering, "Unbelievable." But Melanie wasn't finished. She lifted her chin higher, voice rising. If you felt out of place, that's not my fault. You choose how you live. You choose where you shop. There it was, the mask falling completely. My husband's hand tightened around mine. Lily, still clinging to my side, let out a small, wounded sniffle that echoed louder than any words spoken so far. Melanie flinched at the sound, only because it made her look bad. Her defensiveness wasn't about guilt. It was about exposure, and the crowd was seeing her clearly now. For a moment, the garden felt too quiet, like the party decorations were holding their breath right along with everyone else. The parents who had been clinging to Melanie's every word earlier now shifted uncomfortably, their designer sandals scraping softly against the patio stones. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The crowd was leaning away from her. One mother, the one in the flowing peach dress who had earlier pretended not to notice us, stepped forward slightly. Melanie, she said carefully, that comment, it wasn't appropriate. They're children. Gifts are meant to be thoughtful, not coordinated for photos. Melanie blinked, stunned that someone from her curated circle would dare speak against her. I didn't ask for your opinion, Jenna, she snapped, but her voice lacked its usual authority. Another parent chimed in, the father who had been filming his daughter near the lemonade stand. My son brings handmade gifts all the time, he said, and if someone embarrassed him like that... He let the sentence hang, heavy. A ripple of agreement passed through the group. Nods, murmurs, the uncomfortable realization that they had all been participating, knowingly or unknowingly, in a display more theatrical than genuine. Even the event photographer lowered her camera and stepped aside, as though wanting no part in capturing Melanie's unraveling moment. Savannah, who had been standing stiffly beside her mother, finally whispered, Mom, maybe you shouldn't have said that. Her cheeks were pink with embarrassment, not the kind that comes from guilt, but the kind that comes from having the curtain pulled back in front of an audience. Melanie's head whipped toward her. "Not now!" she hissed. But it was too late. The image she had built, the perfect hostess, the admired mother, was cracking across the surface. A few parents began moving toward the exit, murmuring excuses about early dinners, traffic, other commitments. One mother picked up her child's hand and whispered, "We're leaving. This isn't what a birthday party should feel like." Another mother knelt beside Lily, offering a warm smile. "Honey, your gift was beautiful. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Lily's eyes softened, if only a little. Melanie saw it all, the shifting loyalties, the quiet judgments, and panic flickered across her perfectly made-up face. Her party wasn't falling apart because of us. It was collapsing under the weight of her own cruelty. Lily stood beside me, small and trembling, her fingers wrapped so tightly around my hand that her knuckles had turned white. Her eyes were still wet, lashes clumped together, cheeks blotchy from crying. Every few seconds her breath hitched, that little post-sob shiver that only children have, the one that tells you the hurt is still fresh, still burning. I knelt down so I could look her in the eyes. "Hey," I whispered softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You didn't do anything wrong, not one thing." She swallowed hard. "But Aunt Melanie said—" "She was wrong," I said, firmer this time. "Adults can be wrong too. Sometimes very wrong." Lily nodded, but her chin wobbled. "Why doesn't she like me?" It was a question no child should ever have to ask about family. My chest tightened like someone had reached inside and squeezed my heart with cold fingers. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her tiny frame melt against me. She clung to my shoulders, raw and fragile. Behind us, voices rose again. Parents murmuring, Melanie's clipped tone trying and failing to salvage her carefully crafted image. Every sound grated against my nerves. The humiliation she'd inflicted wasn't accidental. It wasn't a joke gone wrong. It was intentional, targeted, and cruel. My husband placed a steady hand on my back, grounding me. "She doesn't get to hurt her," he murmured. "Not anymore." I nodded, breathing through the storm building inside me. I had spent years letting slights slide, brushing off comments, tolerating the quiet superiority Melanie wielded like a crown. But watching Lily crumble, watching her confidence punctured by someone who should have protected her, made something inside me snap clean in half. I stood slowly, lifting Lily into my arms. She wrapped her legs around my waist, burying her face in my shoulder. I could feel her little heartbeat racing against mine. Parents watched quietly now, as if sensing that whatever came next wouldn't be small. Melanie approached again, trying to reclaim control, but the panic in her eyes betrayed her. "Camilla, honestly, you are making a scene. She's fine. Kids bounce back." I turned to face her fully. "No," I said, voice steady and unshakable. "She won't bounce back from being humiliated by her own aunt. And I won't pretend this is normal anymore." The words tasted electric, like truth finally spoken aloud after years of swallowing silence. Something had shifted inside me. I wasn't just protecting Lily. I was done protecting Melanie's feelings. Melanie opened her mouth to argue again, but before she could twist the moment back into her favor, my husband stepped forward. The shift in his posture was subtle, but enough to quiet even the murmuring parents around us. He rarely spoke in conflicts. He was calm, steady, the type of man who rescued spiders instead of squashing them. So when he did speak, people listened. "Melanie," he said slowly, "you owe my daughter an apology." She scoffed. "I owe you nothing. I already said it was a misunderstanding." He shook his head once. "No, this isn't new. You've been treating her, and Camilla, like they're beneath you for years. Today isn't an accident. It's a pattern. Melanie stiffened. Excuse me? My husband didn't raise his voice, didn't lean toward her, didn't do anything aggressive. He just spoke the truth plainly, clearly, truth she never expected to hear spoken out loud. 3 years ago, he said, when Lily invited Savannah to her birthday, Savannah told the entire class she didn't want to come because, in her words, Lily's house is too small and smells like old books. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Even I inhaled sharply. I'd never heard that. He continued, voice steady. And when Camilla asked you about it, you shrugged and said, kids are honest. You didn't correct her. You didn't ask her to apologize. You laughed. Melanie's face paled beneath her makeup, but he wasn't finished. And last Christmas, he added, you told Camilla she should tone down Lily's excitement when opening gifts so she wouldn't look desperate in front of the family. You said it like you were doing us a favor. A mother, near the drink table, muttered, oh my God. Melanie sputtered, that's not, you're twisting things. But the parents weren't buying it anymore. They were watching her the way people look at a painting they suddenly realize isn't beautiful at all, just expensive. My husband stepped closer, eyes unwavering. You've been teaching your daughter that kindness is optional, that feelings are disposable, that people have value only if their clothes or gifts match your standards. And now that you've hurt Lily in front of everyone, you want to pretend it was a joke. Melanie's mouth opened and closed, searching for a comeback that didn't exist. You can lie to yourself, he said softly, but you can't lie to this moment. Everyone saw exactly who you chose to be today. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of truth, full of judgment, full of the weight of everything she had never expected to be exposed. And Melanie knew it. Melanie's composure cracked like porcelain under pressure. The eyes of her friends, the parents she'd worked so hard to impress, now felt like spotlights exposing every flaw she tried to hide beneath curated perfection. Her breath quickened, her fingers trembling slightly around the stem of her wine glass. This is ridiculous, she burst out, voice rising in a sharp, frantic pitch. You're all acting like I committed some crime. It was one comment, one, and now suddenly I'm the villain of my own daughter's birthday? Savannah tugged at her dress. Mom, please stop. But Melanie was too far gone. She pointed at me, her hand shaking. You love playing the victim, Camilla. You always have. You show up to my events dressed like you don't belong, bringing pity presents, and then twist everything to make me look bad. Gas rippled through the crowd. Jenna whispered to another mother, she's unraveling. Another father muttered, this is ugly. Melanie heard them. Her head snapped in their direction. Oh, please. Like any of you are perfect. Half of you only came because I hired a professional photographer. Don't pretend you care about anything but pictures for your feeds. Silence. Heavy, stunned silence. The DJ, sensing danger, quietly powered down the music. The cheerful garden playlist faded mid-melody, leaving only the distant hum of traffic and the soft rustling of deflating balloons. Parents began gathering their children, exchanging uncomfortable glances. Savannah stood frozen, tears pooling in her eyes, realizing her mother's meltdown was fast becoming the centerpiece of her birthday. Melanie's voice cracked. Wait, don't leave. The party isn't over. But it was. Not because the guests decided it, because Melanie's rage had swallowed the celebration whole. The glittering garden she'd built so carefully was collapsing right there in the quiet after her outburst. And everyone knew she couldn't blame us for that. We didn't wait for the dust to settle. My husband took Lily gently into his arms, and I gathered our things with a calmness that didn't match the thunder rolling through my chest. Parents were already drifting toward the gate, murmuring apologies to us or offering sympathetic nods as they passed. But I didn't need their validation. I just needed to get my daughter somewhere safe, somewhere quiet, somewhere she mattered. As we stepped through the archway of pastel balloons, one of them popped sharply, like the closing note of the evening. Melanie's voice echoed faintly behind us, still trying to salvage a sinking ship, but her words barely reached the driveway. My husband opened the car door, helping Lily settle into her seat. Her eyes were puffy, but she clutched her yellow ribbon like a small lifeline. Just as I was about to climb into the passenger seat, footsteps hurried across the gravel. "Camilla, wait!" I turned to see Savannah, breathless, flushed, tears streaking her sparkly makeup. For a moment, she just stood there, twisting her fingers, as if trying to gather courage from the cool evening air. I'm sorry," she whispered. The apology took me by surprise, not because it didn't feel genuine, but because it came from the one person I least expected. She glanced toward the house, where her mother's voice still floated in broken pleas. "I didn't know she was going to say all that," Savannah continued. "I didn't know she'd embarrass Lily like that. I didn't know she'd embarrass me." Her voice cracked on the last word. My husband stepped back gently, giving her space. Savannah took a shaky breath. "I liked Lily's gift. I really did. And I wish she didn't think she's less than anyone here." Behind her, the garden lights flickered. For the first time all day, someone from Melanie's world saw the damage clearly. And Savannah, small, trembling, honest, was the one who said the words her mother never would. The next morning arrived quieter than usual. No alarms, no rushed breakfast chatter, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of birds outside our window. Lily was still asleep, curled against her stuffed rabbit like she had when she was much younger. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching the gentle rise and fall of her breathing. Peace looked good on her. It made me want to protect it even more fiercely. My phone buzzed for the fourth time that morning. Another message from Melanie. The first one had arrived at midnight. Long, frantic, a mixture of blame and desperation. "I can't believe you walked out. You ruined everything." At 2 a.m., she followed with, "You made me look like a monster. You always twist things." By sunrise, she had shifted into full victim mode. "I didn't deserve that treatment from the guests. You embarrassed me, Camilla." Not one mention of Lily. Not one word that resembled an apology. When she finally called around 9 a.m., my husband looked at the screen and shook his head. "You don't owe her your peace," he said quietly. He was right. So I let the call ring until it went silent. Later, as I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, my father called. He rarely got involved in conflicts. He preferred to pretend they didn't exist, but even he couldn't ignore the hurricane Melanie had created. "I heard there was an incident," he said, voice cautious. "An incident?" I repeated flatly. "Dad, she humiliated Lily." He sighed, the heavy, tired kind. "Your sister is intense, but she's under a lot of pressure. Maybe she didn't mean—" "No," I interrupted, feeling my jaw tighten. "We're not doing that. We're not excusing her because she's stressed or because appearances matter to her. She crossed a line, a big one." Dad went quiet for a long moment before finally saying, "I'll talk to her." But talking wasn't what Melanie needed. Boundaries were. By noon, several parents from the party had reached out. Some sent supportive messages. Others apologized for not stepping in sooner. One mother even asked for our address. Her daughter wanted to bring Lily a handmade bracelet as a gesture of friendship. And then came the final blow. Savannah texted Lily a picture of the bracelet Lily had given her, a simple message underneath, "I'm wearing it today. It's my favorite." Lily's face lit up in a way that healed something in me I hadn't realized was still broken. Melanie had lost control of her narrative. And for once, the truth was speaking louder than she ever could. In the days that followed, our home returned to its familiar rhythm. Slow mornings, Homework spread across the kitchen table, the scent of simmering dinners filling the small but comfortable space we called ours. Yet something subtle had shifted. Lily walked with a little more caution, a little more hesitation in situations where confidence once lived. It broke my heart, but it also strengthened my resolve. One evening, as I tucked her into bed, she looked up at me with soft, searching eyes. "Mom, why does Aunt Melanie act like that?" I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Because some people think they have to make others small to feel big," I said gently. "But that's not strength, sweetheart. That's insecurity pretending to be power." She nodded slowly, absorbing each word as if storing them somewhere safe. "And you," I continued, "are worth more than any gift, any party, or any opinion someone has about you. Your value doesn't change just because someone else fails to see it." Lily's eyes warmed and she whispered, "Thank you, Mom." When I closed her bedroom door, I leaned against the hallway wall and let out a long, quiet breath. For years, I had let Melanie's sharp comments and subtle digs slice at me, choosing peace over confrontation, family harmony over my own dignity. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting, that letting it go made me the bigger person. But watching my daughter stand there in that sunroom, trying to shrink herself to fit someone else's shallow expectations, that was my breaking point. Not out of anger, out of clarity. I realized then that protecting my daughter meant teaching her that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors, and we choose who gets to enter. Melanie texted again a week later. A clumsy attempt at explanation, not apology. I read it once, placed my phone face down, and let the silence answer for me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't sorry. I wasn't bending. I wasn't smoothing things over. I was choosing us. And as I stood in our little living room, beneath the soft glow of evening light, I realized something powerful. If loving your child fiercely means losing people who never truly valued you, then it isn't a loss. It's freedom. So if you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity, hear me. Choose yourself. Choose your child. Choose the love that doesn't require shrinking. Tell me where you're watching from, because I know I'm not the only one who finally stopped apologizing.